Okay. We probably in the room we don't need the microphone, but we do have some folks on the virtual session as well. So we'll be trying to sort of toggle between the two. Also, if the folks in the virtual session, if you want to chime in the chat through the Whova app and just let us know, hello, virtual world, let us know if you can hear us okay through the Whova chat. The Zoom chat is disabled, so you'll want to have the Whova chat up so that you can participate there. We will also be using Mentimeter, which is a good space for both our in-person and our virtual guests to participate and add to the conversation today. So, Adam, do you want
Sure.
to kick us off with our intro?
So, hello everyone. Welcome to our presentation, How to Learn Online, Scaling Digital Literacy and Study Skills for Diverse Online Learner Personas. We will be talking today about a free course on edX called How to Learn Online and how it can hopefully be a lot of great resources for you in your adult educator community and students. And with that, let's, gotcha. Let's talk a little bit about who we are. Uh, my name is Adam Hill. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a principal learning strategist at edX. I have been with the company for almost over 10 years. Uh, Initially with the 2U, the parent company that does a lot of work with scaling online degree programs, and now I mainly work on edX. I'm an instructional designer by training, and most of my work is with doing research and development work on scaling our best practices in online learning within the company, but also with all of the partners we work with. This is my first time at CoAbe, and I'm based in Oakland, California.
Testing. Okay. So hi, I'm Zandy Wright. I am the Director of Learning Strategy at edX. I use they, them pronouns, and I started at edX on March 23rd of 2020, which was a real weird time for a lot of people, but particularly a weird time to be getting into this specific work supporting online higher education because all of a sudden, all of it was online, and that is relevant to what we're going to talk about today with this course. So the other thing, Adam, that I was going to say is, do we want to bring your laptop over here so that we're not crossing back and forth in front of the slides every time? Yeah. Cool. Okay. A little bit of like room feng shui adjustment happening here. All right. So this one is you.
What is edX? Some of you may be familiar, raise your hands. Have you heard of edX before? Those of you in the room. All right. Well, to give you a sense of who we are one of the biggest massive open online course platforms in the world, very similar to Coursera. You've probably heard of Coursera. Yes, yes, nods. Okay, yeah. So we have since our founding in 2012, over 100 million learners have learned on the platform. That represents over 190 plus countries. You can learn kind of anything you want on edX, whether you want to learn about the Civil War just for fun, or if you want to upskill and become a computer programmer or upskill in your career, or through the partnership or through kind of the joint venture of 2U and edX, which does online degree programs, you could even change your life and become a nurse or a physical therapist or something like that. We partner mainly with universities and companies. So we partner with organizations like Google and Microsoft, and Harvard and MIT, also University of Wisconsin. I think we have a little bit of work with Purdue as well, University of Alaska. So lots of organizations. And we have over 5,300 programs that you can access through edX. I think that represents like 4,000 courses in the library. And so we know we have this huge impact, but we also know that there are a lot of barriers to accessing online learning, especially for adult learners. So we have this potential for huge impact, but we know that there are barriers. That includes things like negative prior experiences, whether you have had a prior negative poor experience within the traditional school environment and you don't really have a strong identity or view yourself as a good learner. You also maybe have a negative experience specifically learning online, that maybe someone hasn't enjoyed learning online during like emergency COVID measures. And so that impacts how someone might view the potential to learn more online. Also issues with lack of digital access, that maybe learners don't have access to consistent high-speed internet or consistent access to the hardware needed to learn online or the software. And then also just like a lack of digital and study skills. We know that there's challenges with having the right study skills to learn online. It's not the same as learning in person. And some of those technical and digital skills as well are different from how a lot of us learned in person. So to address this, we have a course called How to Learn Online, which is why we're here today. We want to present this to all of you. We're not here to sell it. It's a free course that you or your learners can take. And we see this as a resource to empower online learners to be successful. There's a range of modules that will go into more in depth on technology skills, on motivational skills, on time management, all in the service of becoming a more effective online learner. Hello. So that is the context and why we're here to talk to you about this course, and we'll get into more depth. But before we do that, we want to learn about all of you. And with that, I'll pass it to Zandy.
Okay, so this is where we're going to get a little bit fancy. So if you have a smartphone, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can, there we go, move the Zoom thing out of the way. All right. So go ahead and scan the screen with your smartphone if you have that available. And actually, as we're getting set up with that, before we answer this question of who are your learners, I'm going to back up by one step and just ask, like, who are you? Are you instructor? Do we like a raised hands for instructors? Okay, administrators of some kind, digital navigators. Cool. What roles have I missed? Okay. Cool. All right. And then, yes, the next question was going to be, tell me about your, I wonder why it's doing this blue background thing. That's interesting. But I was going to say, tell me about your learners themselves. So I see, who are your learners? So we've got some adult ESL learners. We've got some adult high school. We have a person named Miriam. Great. Love that. Okay. And I don't know why it's doing a blue highlight thing. I hope it does not keep doing that the whole time. We'll see. But okay, great. So building service, unions, and some more adult high school. Let me see what happens if I do. Oh, there. It was me. Sorry, I was the problem. Sometimes that happens. All right. So we're getting to know a little bit about your learners, sort of like what background you're teaching in. I'm seeing a lot of adult high school. That's great. And we also want to then hear a little bit about how does online learning show up for your learners? So we've filled in some of the things that we think might apply. So that could be things like, does your program currently offer online classes? Or are your learners potentially taking other online classes outside of your program? Maybe your program is itself face-to-face, but it's using an LMS or using other digital tools as well. Maybe your learners are using things like YouTube or ChatGPT or other online resources to learn. Maybe they are not currently doing online learning, but they have future goals that would be impacted by that. Or there's also a none of these, but I wouldn't be that surprised by none of these, but I'd be surprised if none of these was high, right? That like when we look across all of these possible places where online learning can show up, I would say most folks who are in some kind of a learning program these days are encountering some kind of a digital dimension to that program in some way. So cool. Okay, so we've got quite a few folks here who say there are online classes in your program, in the program that you either teach or administer, or the program that you are part of. So that's great. That gives me some good context for sort of what we're talking about together. And then also a fair bit of just using LMS or other digital tools for in-person classes, a fair bit of informal learning. All right, awesome. So yes, as Adam said, sort of the impetus for creating this course that we're going to talk about in just a moment was recognizing that like there's this whole world of digital resources out there, but that just putting things online and hoping that that means that everybody can have access to them is not really how it works. I do a lot of work in digital inclusion spaces, in teaching digital skills. I know that the idea that like we made it online, therefore it's accessible to everyone does not apply. So we're trying to really kind of bridge that where we can. So speaking of which, let's see. All right. So next, I would love to hear about the digital barriers that your learners encounter. So this one also should allow you to check multiple boxes. Hopefully we've got it set up correctly. So if your learners have maybe don't have an adequate device, don't have internet at home, if they have struggle with their digital skills, maybe they don't feel like it's for them, like they just don't identify as someone who like feels confident in those spaces or feels welcome in those spaces. There may be language barriers, there may be accessibility challenges, or if you choose something else, I might ask you to elaborate. But cool. Okay. So we've got a few responses so far. I'll wait a little bit for folks to add their responses so we can see. Cool. Okay. And for the folks who are in the room, and actually, Adam, can I get you to take the mic around? Would anybody like to just share a little bit about like how does this show up for your learners? What are you hearing from them or seeing from them in terms of the barriers to online learning? If you're feeling brave.
I can, hello?
Yep.
Yes, okay. I could talk about a little, in my previous role, in part of it, of course, through shutdown, I was working at a specific agency. It really a lot of it was device, internet, and actually like the navigation of it. Even when students were getting the device, they weren't familiar with it.
Mm.
So kind of one of the things we had to do was streamline like the process, try to keep it consistent to some degree. So if the student was with multiple teachers, then it was still the similar process to get access to it to provide that repetition for them to be able to engage or be able to connect easier.
Sure. Yeah. So if students had multiple instructors trying to have a consistent digital process where like you're still logging in the same place, you're still accessing through Zoom or whatever the tool is. Cool. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And yes, the cognitive load already can be really high, especially in that sort of emergency online setting where you were not expecting to be online and suddenly you're trying to navigate this new space. So yes, trying to navigate just one new space instead of three new spaces makes a lot of sense. Cool. All right. Let's see. So, I'll talk very briefly about our objectives for today. You're going to hear a fair amount about the course and sort of the pedagogical framework, how we think about how to approach this challenge. And I will say we're very aware of the fact that we're trying to solve a like digital access and digital approachability problem with a digital resource. Like, yep, we know. So we have tried to design this to be as accessible as possible for as many learners as possible. And we'll also try to be honest about the places where if your learners are don't have internet at home. The course does talk about some things you can do to address that if that applies to you, but we can't solve that for your learners, right? So we're trying to sort of adjust the levers that we can. So we'll talk about the pedagogical framework, the core content, and the skills that we cover in this course. We'll talk about how we try to support diverse learner personas and sort of the wide population of learners that we serve that Adam spoke about. And then we will try to identify some opportunities where this might be useful for your learners. Or we also hope to hear some feedback. If you come away from this going like, cool idea, doesn't work for my learners, we'd love to talk about why and what other resources might help in that case. So with that, all right. I've got a little sort of like prediction, a pre-flexion, if you will. So if you would make your best guess, which of these four factors would you say best predicts online learning success? So we've got previous GPA. Oh, that's supposed to say age/generation. Previous online learning and overall intelligence. All right, we've got a few folks responding. Okay. So, and this is the challenge with with showing the results live in the Mentimeter is that once you get sort of a quorum around one answer, then people sort of start to like congregate to that one. So if we were really taking this seriously, we would have like hidden the answers until we got more responses. But I will say that in general, so the folks who said previous online learning, you would be correct. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that means for this experience. So research into success as an online learner tells us that past success predicts future success. Previous online learning success is the best predictor of whether you're going to be successful in the future, which gives us this lovely sort of either vicious or virtuous cycle of once you've been successful, then that boosts your confidence, and then that helps you to persist when things are challenging, and then that drives future success, and on and on and on. But there's a couple of problems. One is that makes it hard to separate correlation from causation, right? Is it that past success causes future success, or is it just that the people who have certain traits are more likely to be successful last time and this time? So we're going to talk about some of the intervention research that's been done to try to unpack that a little bit. The other problem, of course, that this presents is like, that's great. You know, you can, once you've been successful at online learning, maybe you can do it again, but how do you get that first win, right? How do you start this virtuous cycle for your learners if that's not a space where they feel comfortable? So that's really sort of what informed our approach to this course, I would say, more than anything. So the research in intervention strategies that can help first-time online learners be successful. Here's what it says. It says, first, you need to explicitly orient them to the platform itself, to the technology they're going to be using, to the course or the program expectations, the same way you would do any kind of an orientation at the beginning of any other program, but include the tech, include the digital experience as part of that. Explicitly teaching self-regulated learning and online self-efficacy skills. So this is not just the digital skills, it's also sort of like digital problem solving, the ability to like determine how and when to allocate your time to get your things done. We know that particularly in a fully online program where learners are having to kind of motivate themselves to do things in between classes, the dynamic of like you get out of it what you put into it can apply even more in that setting than it does in an in-person setting. So teaching those skills explicitly. Starting with lower difficulty activities to support early wins. This we're probably already doing as instructors, right? You're doing sort of scaffolding up to meet folks at the appropriate level, but intentionally doing this with digital spaces and with digital experiences can be really impactful. So this is part of the reason that an orientation experience matters, is because then your learners are getting comfortable in the new space without trying to also learn new material on top of it in a meaningful way. And then lastly, creating a sense of belonging in that online space to counter that social identity threat, right? If your learners feel like this, you know, this whole online thing doesn't really feel like me, I don't see myself as a person who belongs in this space, creating ways for those learners to feel like I am an online learner. I can do this. I do fit in this space, and I see myself reflected in this space can help with that kind of persistence challenge. In the same way that you would want them to feel comfortable and feel that sense of belonging in a classroom. So you're going to see us sort of tying back to a lot of these ideas as we speak a little bit more about the course itself. But this really kind of, all of this comes together to support the sort of two-part pedagogical framework, which is just our hope and our belief is that students take this course, they develop the online learning skills that we're specifically teaching, and they complete an online course. They can say, hey, I did it. I completed an online course. Go me. That helps to drive more confidence, more persistence, and then they have the technology and the resources that they need to persist now in courses where they are learning more of the challenging material. So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk a little bit more about the course itself, what it covers, we'll probably touch on some of the approaches or sort of call back to some of these approaches as we go. So Adam, I think am I handing back to you? Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. So yes, if you have questions along the way, please feel free. We've queued up the sort of the Q&A in the Mentimeter, so you can just write them down and not worry about forgetting them. And then we'll circle back and answer those at the end. We will also be able to come around with the microphone at the end with questions if folks have them. So cool. Okay, with that.
So let's dive in. So we're gonna now talk about the course at a pretty high level, but so this won't be like a crash course like in how to learn online and everything you'll learn, but we hope we'll give you the proper level of detail, like the proper altitude to understand what this course is all about, what we cover, and how it could be relevant to your organizations, your student populations, your context. So we've talked about our theory of change. We've talked about the research behind how a course like this is effective. So what's in it? So at a high level, a description, How to Learn Online is a self-paced, resource-rich edX course. So completely asynchronous, do it on your own, self-paced, guided by a series of self-reflection activities. That's really the self-reflection is a lot of what we're trying to instill at this point. And those are kind of the activities that drive the course. And this helps build skills to succeed as an online learner through these 4 main modules of motivation, digital literacy, study skills and study habits, and time management. All of that kind of harkening back to some of the research that Sandy was mentioning. So just to give you a sense of like the types of learners that we see on our platform, and it is quite broad, we see like we have this persona called like the supported student, those students that are co-enrolled in something else, whether that be some sort of adult learning program, maybe even a degree program, or another course on edX. And so this is intended to support them on that learning journey. We also just see kind of like learning hobbyists, people that are just kind of like casually learning. So they might just be like, oh, just kind of browsing, whether that's to learn more about AI or to learn about anatomy or whatever you might want to learn about. And so they might also be browsing this course kind of casually. And then a persona that we really try to support a lot is this career switcher, whether that's someone that wants to upskill maybe in their current career trajectory and get a promotion through some sort of certificate or degree they could show, or just course completion, or completely change their career as well. So these are kind of the 3 main personas that we support. It is quite broad. So that's kind of helpful context to think about who this course is appealing to, but we hope it can appeal to a broad population that you all serve as well. So the course has 4 main modules. You know what? One thing I didn't, well, a couple things I forgot to mention at the top. One is that this course was born initially in 2020 to help online learners get ready in a hurry. It was kind of thought like, oh my gosh, there's this moment of online learning right now, and we really need to support learners. And so that's how it was initially designed and built. But we have now updated it almost every year. I think once we updated it twice in a year to kind of stay on trend with current online learning trends and the trajectory of how online learning has become so much more widespread in the last 6 years. The other thing is that Zandy and I are the co-designers of this course, which I maybe didn't say explicitly. And so we'll talk about each of these modules, focusing on the ones that we took the lead in designing, although this was a collaborative effort. So the first module really sets this foundation. It's on motivation and online learning. It's to really like understand your identity as a learner and develop that sense of self-efficacy. Then we get into core technology skills, those skills that we think are really important to become a successful online learner. Study strategies. A lot of these are focused on like probably the study skills that you are teaching your students, but also focusing specifically on those ones that are critical for online learning success. And then finally, time management, because online learning, especially self-paced online learning, requires a sense of self-directedness and time management that is really critical. One thing that we have updated in 2026 is actually AI literacy is kind of now woven throughout each module. It's really focused on AI literacy as it relates to learning. So having learners have an understanding of what AI is and how it can support them in their learning journey if they choose to use it, but also being mindful of the ways that it could potentially harm or hinder learning. So really thinking about AI through the context of learning and being a supporting partner in that journey if they choose to use it.
And I'm going to add one comment, which is something I overheard. I guess waiting for another session to start from one instructor was talking to another and said that even for her learners who had very, very limited digital skills, that she was teaching English language classes, and a lot of her students were using ChatGPT, even if they were not really using other digital tools, because it felt like, well, it'll just say things for me, it'll correct my grammar, it like makes it polished, and it sort of, it makes the final output feel more successful than if I just did it myself. And that's part of what we're wanting to address here, is knowing that learners, even learners who don't think, okay, I'm an online learner, probably have heard about or know that it is possible to use a lot of these tools for things that end up being sort of shortcuts and that may or may not actually be helping them with their learning. So we wanted to kind of weave that in as part of the curriculum. Yeah.
All right, so diving another layer deeper now, Module 1 focuses on motivation and online learning. So we wanted to really ensure that we were being really intentional about thinking about how learners kind of see themselves as a learner, developing this sense of motivation. So actually, we start with a brief history of online learning and really focusing on the benefits of online learning and how it's expanded in the last decade or so, which is really around like expanded access and flexibility around time and space. So the fact that you can do online learning at your own time and you don't necessarily have to go to a single space, that you can do it kind of wherever you want to, wherever you are with access to internet. And we also talk about some of the common online learning terminology that they might encounter, like asynchronous learning and synchronous learning. And we think that having this sense of the history and benefits and terminology really sets the stage for learners to then think about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So those internal drivers for learning and those external ones. And through this, also reflecting on their past experiences as an online learner to really start to form a new identity of how they can see themselves as being effective, and it's kind of like writing a new story on this new journey. As I mentioned, every single module is really guided by self-reflection activities. And so at the end of the first module, learners are reflecting on what motivates them to learn, how that motivation will help and sustain them, and also what resources they will draw on to support them when things get challenging. We also do cover in this module kind of some of the foundations of AI, some of the benefits and potential hindrances to learning, and get learners to then reflect on staying motivated when they have AI. So thinking about how AI can be really tempting to use to shortcut learning at sometimes. And so how can you really think about your motivation? Why are you here? Do you want to change your career? Do you want to upskill? Do you want to get a certificate? And how you can center that in kind of moving through that productive struggle that is inherent in learning. And yeah.
And actually, I realized one other thing we forgot to say. So if you are working with English language learners, with folks for whom taking a course like this in English would be a barrier, edX, the edX platform does also have site level and course level translation capabilities. So if your learners would be perfectly comfortable taking this course in a different language and struggle with taking it in English, they can actually switch this course into their preferred home language to learn. That, depending on where they are, that may or may not actually sort of support the English language learning arc that you want them to be on. But that is, if that's a potential barrier for your learners, just know that that resource exists. Cool.
And with that,
yes, I will also talk about here. I'll hand you this. Okay. So I mentioned that I also am active in like digital inclusion efforts and teaching digital skills. So I was the main author on our technology module, and we started with just some resources to practice digital skills. We are trying to be intentional about not duplicating things that already exist. So if your learners have access to North Star, or if they're using like digitallearn.org resources, this is intended not to replace them, but to direct them to some of those resources if they don't already know that they exist, to point them out to additional supports. We talk about having a growth mindset for specifically in learning how to navigate technology, and the fact that like Nobody is born knowing how to use these tools. Everyone you know who is confident doing digital things acquired those skills over time. And also all of these skills or all of these tools are going to keep changing. So we talk with learners about what are the technologies that you currently feel confident using? How did you learn those skills? What are the technologies that you would like to feel more confident using? And then we also introduce the idea of an LMS. We actually like define, like there's a thing called a learning management system. Here's what that means. Here are some of the names of the common ones. Here's what you can expect. This is not a step-by-step tutorial of Canvas or of whatever learning management system your program is using. So it should not replace an actual like hands-on guided walkthrough of that system, but it does give a sort of an overview of like, here are some of the really common features across these different tools. I mentioned earlier that we know that if your learners don't have internet access at home, that we unfortunately can't just like magically solve that problem for them through this course. But we do have, again, some links out to resources, including the Everyone On page where they can go to look for, put in their zip code and fill in a little bit of information about their household, like benefits or eligibility status to find out if they're eligible for low cost or free devices and low cost or free internet in their area. And we also do a fair amount of like pointing them to their local library or to the other humans in their life who might be able to provide support if they get stuck on the technology things. And then this is also where, as Adam mentioned, we introduce the idea of this AI technology a little bit earlier. In this module, we spend a bit more time on what is this generative AI thing? Is ChatGPT the same as generative AI? We talk about the fact that there's some different tools out there and about being intentional in choosing what tools you're likely to use in general across online learning spaces, but also being intentional about when and how to use AI tools. And then we do also a little bit of, you might recognize at least one, maybe both of these people here. So we do a little bit of sort of education, like civics education around the fact that AI makes it so that you can have a thing that looks like a video of a thing that happened in real life, but that in fact is synthetic media. So Adam has this lovely video of real Adam talking to Alex, his AI avatar, and like having a conversation with himself, just to give learners a little bit of exposure to this idea that just because you saw a photo or a video doesn't mean that it's real, that this means that we have to be a little bit extra critical in our media consumption these days. So with that, I'll hand back to Adam to talk about study skills.
So study skills are a really important part of online learning. They're a really important part of any kind of online learning, I would say. But we really wanted to ensure that we were thinking about the ways that, again, we can develop that sense of self-efficacy in our learners and also have this be like a really encouraging tone and something that's inviting. We did want this to kind of be researched back without being like showing a lot of research jargon, but that like these are like science proven ways to be an effective online learner. But we also want this to be inviting, and this wasn't just like just try harder and that's how you'll get this. Like, so we wanted this to be a really encouraging and inviting way that learners could develop this toolkit of different strategies that worked for them. And understanding that maybe not all of these would work well for them, but thinking about which ones would be supportive in their specific context. So we actually have this framework. It's called the ABCD framework, and it stands for awareness, balance, community, and dedication. So awareness gets into things like metacognition and self-reflection, really developing that sense of awareness of your learning processes, thinking about, are you just kind of like reading something on the page and the words are just kind of floating in front of you, or are you really comprehending and developing that sense of awareness and reflection as you go throughout any sort of learning experience? Then balance refers to like wellness and rest and taking breaks and thinking about the ways that you really need to bring your best self to a learning experience. So understanding that it isn't just try harder. You have to take rest and you have to be intentional about how you bring your best self to learning. Then community refers to both the social learning community that you're a part of, whether you're in a classroom or a specific online learning community, as well as your personal community and how that personal community is supporting you in your broader journey. And then finally, dedication refers to those kind of strategies to help make learning durable and long lasting. Things like the testing effect. So that often rereading your notes, you might think that's an effective study strategy, but it's not really proven to be as effective as testing yourself and self-quizzing. That's also called retrieval practice. We also talk pretty intentionally here about using AI as a learning partner and not a replacement. So getting learners to think about getting to this idea of cognitive offloading, that there's ways to use AI to help you, like explain something at a lower level or at a more understandable level or in a context that is aligns to my interests, rather than offloading too much to AI such that it's hindering your learning. And Zandy designed this following one, so I'll pass it back to them.
Okay. So yes, so with the time management one, we felt like we couldn't do a course about how to learn online without talking some about managing your time, especially lots of the research that shows that learners need strong, like self-directed learning skills to be successful in a lot of these spaces. And also, and I will say, as a late diagnosed neurodivergent person myself, I have gotten a lot of the like just try harder advice in my life, or just like put it on your calendar and then that will like solve it for you. Like I get it. I have been personally the recipient of a lot of advice that just like didn't really work for me. So we wanted to look a little bit beyond things that are just like put it on your calendar. We do talk about how to create a study plan, but we also include things like the research behind chronotypes, the idea that there's a lot of sort of like are we calling it day maxing, or like some right, calendar maxing, right? There's some kind of like just wake up at 5 a.m. and start your day at like there's a lot of that sort of that goes around. And the research shows that, in fact, if you are not a morning person, trying to make yourself into a morning person or sort of force yourself to be more disciplined by waking up earlier is not actually going to work for you. And that, in fact, you will not be as successful studying at that time of day as you will during a time of day that you're more awake. So it's drawing on a lot of that research. It's drawing on some specific strategies like the Pomodoro technique, which we have a visual for, to help learners who might be like maybe having trouble getting started or having trouble sort of sitting down and focusing for a defined period of time. We do talk about weekly study planning, and also, frankly, we know that adult learners are famously busy. They are famously sort of juggling all kinds of responsibilities in addition to their learning a lot of the time. And so we talk about, when you're doing your study planning, like be realistic with yourself about what else is on your plate and about how the way that you're using your time aligns with your values, right? Think back to your motivation for trying to do this online learning in the first place. What are you willing to take off of your calendar or move around in order to make time for the learning that you're going to need? And also, what are your non-negotiables, right? If you are not willing to miss your kids' soccer game in order to be at home studying, like just know that and put that on your calendar as you're making these plans. And then we also include, again, if learners are using AI tools to help them with their studying, a couple of resources to help them sort of use their time more effectively, including here's a prompt that you can use with ChatGPT or Gemini to have it help you create a study schedule that's kind of optimized to the things that you particularly need. So, okay. So things we've heard from learners. We do have several sort of survey like checkpoints throughout the course. These come from the learner feedback at the very end of the course. So we asked them, what is something that was surprising about this course and learning experience? And we see a lot of, it's very validating, obviously, as an instructor when your students like say back the things to you that you really wanted them to take away. So like, it was surprising to learn that active recall is more effective than just rereading my notes. Yes, got them. I did not expect techniques like spacing my study time and having short focused sessions to improve my understanding and my memory so much, right? So we're seeing that sort of like, oh, I didn't know this thing and now I do. And then when we ask, what is one technique that you plan to incorporate in your learning? I would say the Pomodoro technique is probably the number one thing that shows up in that comment over and over again. Finding time and planning to study during the time of day that I retain information the most. And then I love this one. I need a weekly study plan so bad. So lots of just good, like positive comments and also some good constructive like feedback that we're taking into account for an upcoming revision to this course. So let's see, with that, we wanted to check on our Q&A. So if you had any questions, you can put them in the Mentimeter still. I think it should be open for Q&A. Or if you're in the room, you're also welcome to just like raise your hand and we can bring the mic around. And we're happy to talk more about, oh, sorry, here, let me put the Mentimeter back up. So if you don't have it open, you can grab it. And yes, question.
I really like how the course is set up. Looking at creating the online course for student success, taking consideration not just like the setup and the technology, but also the study skills and time management, which is a lot of there's the assumption of what students need to know, and this just takes into account if you don't, then all of that is covered if you take it, regardless if you know what you know and don't know. Um, with that, is this part like an onboarding process? Like this is the course it take, and it came in a little late, so I apologize. If they come in before they do an online class, it's like a required online course that they take, and how do you get them equipped to be able to do this course remotely, especially if they need that technology support beforehand?
Yes, great question. So the answer is slightly complicated. So I would say in general, the context that we talked about at the very beginning of the session is that so edX is an organization that's similar to Coursera, if you're familiar with Coursera. So we have, I think, something like 5,000 online courses that are self-paced that learners can take. But we know that for a lot of learners, especially if they're taking something that's more challenging material, that can just be very intimidating to try to just dive right into. So this is meant to be sort of a bridge or like a pre-skilling opportunity for learners who it's like come to the site, see like look at all this stuff that I could learn, but also I don't feel confident in this space. It is so we don't run an in-person adult education or like adult skills program, but part of why we're here is to try to just help more folks out in the world know that this resource exists. So we would love for this to be just like become a resource that you feel comfortable pointing your learners to if it feels like it's at the right level for them. I will say we have used this as an onboarding or a modified version of this as an onboarding sort of like getting started course for the Verizon Skill Forward partnership that we have, which we are going to talk about on a later slide. So that was a sort of like initial, here's a 30-minute like how to be successful in this program orientation before you dive into all the other courses on the platform. Yeah, great question. Other questions? Okay. All right. And yes, so somebody said, since this is a free course, does it require account creation? If not, is there a way to track completion and progress? So yes, it does require account creation. So I appreciate folks asking that. Setting up an edX account just requires an email and a password. There's no other sort of like, complex registration or like data collection or things like that. And that is the best way for learners to track their progress. I will say when we talk about the ways that learners can access this course, the free way to access it is as an audit learner, which means that they won't get a certificate at the end. If it feels important for your learners to get a certificate, we'll talk about how we can manage that as well. So yeah, but yes, we truly, I'll probably talk about this again later. Your learners can pay money to get a certificate for this course. We are the course authors. We do not think that that's the main use case here, right? Like this is not a subject that most people need a certificate in. This is content that we think people would benefit from having access to. So we tried to put it out there and make it like as accessible as we can. Okay, other questions? Okay, I have somebody adding a question. Sorry. I If you want, you can also say it out loud and we can just repeat it in the microphone. Yeah. Great question. So not to the level where it would accomplish like the certificate for them, where they would be able to like sort of fully test and check that box as complete. But it does have some sort of like math courses, English language courses, other, like other languages besides English. I'd have to look to see what other subjects might be covered sort of at an appropriate level for high school students, but I would say good as a like a general learning resource potentially at that level. I would also say if you're working with high school students who are just kind of figuring out what they want to do with their lives and want to sort of like learn a little bit about a bunch of careers, this can be a really good resource for that. And again, they can do audit access for most of these courses for free and just go and just like poke around. Like, what is this intro to data science? Like, what does a data scientist do? I have no idea, right? And just go like explore some of the courses in the catalog that way. Yeah. Yeah, great question. Okay. I didn't see that other. Oh, mm, mm. Oh, I have. Yes, you're right. There we go. Okay, cool. So are we open to importing the course into another LMS, like Canvas, for example, for a state? Yeah, let's talk. I would say depending on like how it would be used, like we've not done that before, but yeah, we could talk about that. Yeah, cool. Okay, great. All right. Let's see. I think. Oh, yes. So I was curious then to hear from you. So we talked about sort of the 4 modules of this course, the motivation, technology, study strategies, time management. Would love for you to kind of put those in order for us for your learners. Where do you see them needing the most support? All right. We've got one respondent in. Okay. I feel like I could sort of like narrate what's happening like a like race course like announcer like study strategies are in the lead by a nose. No, we won't do that. But okay, so it looks like study strategies feel like kind of the most substantial place where folks are saying like my learners need some support with this, could use help with that sort of like awareness, the metacognitive skills. And then technology coming in second. We're going to talk about that in just a moment, actually. Time management and then motivation, which that tracks for me. That I have worked with a lot of very motivated adult learners, motivating them to or having them feel motivated to jump over this particular hurdle sometimes can be a challenge, right? But the bigger picture motivation often is not the issue. Yeah, cool. Okay. All right. So this is where, when we think about the technology piece of this, what are the other digital supports that your learners need? Other things besides just study skills, besides just understanding what even is an LMS that would be valuable for them. And this could include things that you, in fact, are providing, or could include things that you're like, man, I really wish that my program could offer this, and we can't. You can also just call them out if you're in the room, if you're happier talking than typing on your phone. Cool. All right. So I see one person said learning how to use specific apps like Excel. Yep. Which again, I will say there are some Excel courses on the platform, but this course does not try to tackle that. Right. It truly is more sort of like foundational using an online learning space. But the hope is that once learners start to feel a little bit more confident in those spaces, that can kind of unlock access to some of those, or unlock feeling confident accessing some of those other resources. Yeah, cool. Okay, I see also ADA supports. So that's that accessibility, disability element. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm curious. Can the person who raised your hand when you said you're a digital navigator, can I put you on the spot a little bit? I'm very curious about like what kinds of digital supports are you providing to learners, just so that other folks get an idea. Yeah, let's do that. Good call.
So kind of take this a little bit with also both of us are in the same organization, and so we're trying to formulate what that looks like. But some of the support that we already have is we are able to loan technology. So they do have access to laptops, and if in certain situations, if they need hotspots, and the hotspots, thank you T-Mobile. Oh, they're not in the room. The hotspots are discounted through T-Mobile. One of the things that is kind of a struggle is what does like a sort of self-paced curriculum look like? And also, what does the access look like for our individuals who would be taking these particular courses? That's sort of it. We have solutions, but every solution seems to have a problem in itself. So access seems to be the big umbrella term for it, and then it's different for every single person.
Yes. Yeah. And when you say access, that's like internet device, just like getting onto.
Skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Yes. And I if I were in charge of the world, not the first thing I would do, but one of them would be to put digital navigators in adult education programs, just like as a standard, as a resource. So yeah, that's great. Cool. Okay, we did get some other responses as well. So some of them, learners need instructions or tutorials, help centers with FAQs. And again, I will say actually in this course, because it's on the edX platform, we do talk about here's where you can find the help center. Here's how to submit a question to our tech support folks. This help button is always down here in the bottom, I think bottom left. But of course, if your learners are not going to be learning on the edX platform, right? They need to know, how do I find those help tutorials for the specific platform that I'm using? So that could include either teaching them how to Google, teaching them what is it called, the platform that we use, and how do I Google those instructions, or just knowing who to come to at their program. Accessing Google Meets effectively. Yep, the video calling skills if you've got those online live sessions, absolutely. How to navigate synchronous courses, which includes, yes, navigating various apps at the same time, right? That's where you get from sort of like the digital skills 101 up into the like 201, 301, like the juggling of multiple different tools simultaneously. And then, yes, so somebody else said, not tied to this particularly, but the teachers also need support so that they can support their learners, or they need an extra hand to do so, right? I would say that's also maybe like on the list of reasons that we wanted to create a resource for this, because we know that a lot of adult educators are now being asked to also be the tech help and the like computer skills tutors on top of the things that you're actually teaching in your class. And that can be kind of an extra layer of challenge. So we're hoping to try to address at least a little of that. We can't magically solve it, or we would, but yeah. Okay. Let's see. So, all right. So let's talk about if you want to explore this course a little bit more yourself, or if you want to refer learners to it, we have a couple of QR codes, a couple of links to point you to. So the way to access the course directly, and actually I'm going to pull this up in just a moment. So this QR code will take you to the edX.org course page. That will let you audit the course for free. And in just a moment, I'll show you kind of like what that looks like. So the course is considered 1 week long. So that gives you access for 1 week. That means that if you go and like sign up for it now and then go like, well, when I get home, I'll go and look at it, and then you don't look at it for another month, your access will have expired. So grab that link, save it, but don't actually enroll until you're ready to go in there and take a look. And if you have your learners signing up as audit learners in that way, make sure they also know this is easily completable in a week, but know that you have a week to do it. Yeah.
One thing to add here, for those of you on Zoom, I just put in the chat a link to our a website that contains all the links. We will share that with all of you. But for those of you on Zoom, the tiny URL that might take you to the edX site, in which case you need to search for it, How to Learn Online, but the course QR code should work, or the link within the website should work. So
yeah, and I'm just going to briefly point out. So let's see, there we go. All right, so this is what this will look like. And I'm just going to point out for the folks in the room. So like the big orange button, I guess everybody can see the big orange button. The one that says advance your career, that's the one where it's going to invite you to pay for a certificate. That applies to things like, advance your career by completing this IBM, like fundamentals of IT career skills certificate. We like that. Like we said, we don't think that How to Learn Online is a course that most learners need a certificate in, to be totally honest. So audit course, this button here is the one where we would point most of our learners. But there is another way if, for instance, your learners just want extended access so they don't have to just complete it within the week, or if you want them to be able to bring you a certificate to show that they've completed it. So the Verizon Skill Forward program, which is going to run through the end of this year. So between now and the end of December, this is a partnership between edX and Verizon. It's a free online learning program. Basically, it's a curated set of courses that are on the edX platform. If your learners live in the United States and are 17 or older, they are eligible to sign up for this program. The registration process, it'll ask for an email. It'll ask for, I think, a first and last name. It does not ask any questions about citizenship. It does not require a social security number or anything like that. And that the course catalog for Skill Forward includes the How to Learn Online course. It also includes a lot of those other sort of like intro to this career, introductory AI, introductory other kind of technology skills courses. So that is, I think, a good resource just for learners to know about. If it were persisting beyond the end of this year, I probably would have been like, hey, we should have a table at COABE and we should get the word out. But so for the next 7.5 months at least, it's a good resource for your learners to have. So cool. Okay. This QR code will take you to our team's website, which has links to all of these resources in case you lose them. And if you have other questions, we would love to answer them. Or we can send everybody to happy hour 10 minutes early. Also an option. Cool. Okay, I get the sense that we're going to opt for that one. Adam and I will be up here to answer questions if you have like an individual question, if you want to come and ask us more things, or if you just want to say hi. So yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate you all being here.
thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say, sorry, if you are a references nerd, if you want to see, like, show me your receipts, there is a slide with tiny references that is included in the PDF that you can get in the Whova app, or I think also from our website. I forgot to say that.
Yes.
So if you're like, you talked a lot about research, but show me the research, there it is. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.